time for Common Man. Common man, charms your housewives like no one can. What'd you shoot? Where'd we play? Non-stop nonsense on deck today. Tune in, it's time for Common Man.
Oh, boy.
Why should anybody aspire to be a common man, an average man? Do you realize what it means to be average? That means you're the best of the lousiest, and the lousiest of the best. Now, if we demand more and more for producing less and less, while the have-not nations encourage and inspire and indeed require hard work and maximum effort, if we deify the common men while they encourage and reward the uncommon ones, well, the end result of such a lopsided race as that is too obvious to require elaboration.
I mean, it's like, hello?
I'm pulling my tickets!
Disease.
So what? You know? If you carry, you carry. If not, hey, I look at bad blood sometimes as motivation. So, you know, those are things that are out of my control. If you carry, you carry it.
1 year ago, we knocked on the door. This year, we beat on the door. Next year, we're going to kick the son of a in.
How about a beer?
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, you can't get fooled again.
You guys are going to criticize whatever you want to criticize.
How do you like me now?
Nobody cares. Excuse me.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Yes, I do!
I know one thing. If anyone thought I wouldn't look good in purple, look at me now. Look at me now.
Capriza.
Quack, quack.
I'm a fraud.
Yes.
He's the clown from Brown. He's the fourth in the North. This is the Common Man, Dan Cole.
Food Network. Food Network. Halloween Baking Championship is on, Tennessee. This is big.
Oh, there's a championship.
Regardless of what day they play it, Monday night, Tuesday, Thursday night, Sunday night, it's the Halloween Baking Championship. You know why I changed it to Food Network? It was on ESPN. This is what they were debating. This is where, in all honesty, how do you, at the risk of being accused of idolizing and pedestalizing, it said, who would you rather have for this matchup at quarterback, Mahomes or Brock Purdy?
Come on. It did not.
No, it did. It did because
it did not.
God is my witness. Because apparently Purdy has been pretty good against San Francisco.
Against Kansas City?
Against Kansas City. And again, at the risk of idolizing and pedestalizing, because you know I'm not the guy, you take Pat Mahomes over Brock Purdy 100 out of 100 times, and you take him 100 out of 100 times over every other quarterback in the league, yes. Don't you? And he's capable of having an off game, I'm sure. And there are other great quarterbacks in the league. We know who they are. But to actually debate who would you rather have quarterback in your club on Sunday? Would you rather have Pat Mahomes or Brock Purdy? It's literally preposterous.
Now, I guess if you want to argue,
be careful. You could get nominated for PST here.
If you want to argue, would you rather have Brock Purdy at his salary compared to Pat Mahomes at his salary?
Yeah.
then maybe you can somewhat have a discussion. But yeah, if you leave money out of it, I don't know why we're even talking about it. If you're just saying just based off their quarterbacking skills.
Well, we're not talking about it. Not now. We're talking about cherry chocolate cheesecake. That's what we're talking about.
You're going to get hungry over there.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping they'd show what I'm having for lunch today on Food Network. I was going to wait till 1 o'clock for Food Network. I was going to go to Travel Channel, but I can do that. See them. Travel Channel. Shock docs. The devil made me do it. What is that all about? What does that have to do with travel? Oh, this is scary looking stuff. She looks like she's from the Salem witch trials. Food Network. All right, I'm back at Food Network. Apparently, there are two. I would say the two marquee games of the weekend tend to be are San Francisco against Kansas City, and the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings hosting the Motor City Kitties. Both games are Fox. The number one broadcast team for Fox is who does the blow-by-blow? Brady's the analyst. Who's his blow-by-blow guy?
I don't even know. Is that Burkhardt still, or is he with Greg Olson?
Well, Burkhardt, I think, is... No, Greg, the guy that Greg Olson... I read this, actually. The guy that Greg Olson's working with is doing baseball right now. I don't think Greg works with Burkhardt anymore. So is it Burkhardt and Brady? Whatever it is, Brady...
Looks like Joe Davis is with Greg Olson.
Joe Davis, that's right. Joe Davis is filling in and does a competent job, apparently. I'm not sure. I'm familiar with Joe Davis's work. I am with Greg Olson's work. Who does Brady work with then? Do we know? Do we have any indication? Can you look that up?
Tom Brady is with Kevin Burkhardt.
Kevin Burkhardt, okay. And I like Burkhardt as a play-by-play guy. My favorite duo, I think Burkhardt, he was working with Greg Olson, right? And I like that duo. There are people that don't like Greg Olson as an analyst. I think he might be, I think he's the best. And I'm going to get ripped, and everybody's entitled to opinion. I think he's the best television football analyst in the business. I think he's the best. He doesn't make it about himself. He doesn't. He's not over the top. He calls them as he sees them. He plays it pretty straight up, and I really like what he does. But they dumped him out of the number one role to have Tom Brady, and they are paying Brady. You talk about salary cap issues. Was Brady like $387 million over like
ridiculous
10 years? Just some outrageous amount of money. And Brady did the Vikings. No, which game did he do?
How do you come to that total, by the way?
I don't know.
Like if Fox had come to Tom Brady and said $20 million, how do you go? No, I need way more than that.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he would have. Yeah, you're right. I don't know how you get that much, but you certainly are going to get more than $20 million. But here, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is Davis and Greg Olson will be doing the Vikings Kitties game, while Burkhardt and Brady will be doing Kansas City and San Francisco, which leads you to believe they feel that's the game of the week. And you can make that argument.
That makes sense, yeah.
Well, but San Francisco, why does that make sense? Just because
Mahomes is the biggest draw.
Right, but if it
in the league.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that doesn't mean this is going to be the best game of the week.
I'm not saying it's going to be the best game. I'm saying they go off of where they think the most people are going to be watching. Historically, Mahomes and Travis Kelce, especially if Taylor Swift's in the crowd, is going to draw more eyeballs than Vikings lines.
Then you and Fox are just wrong. I mean, that's great. I mean, you can make that argument, but you're not wrong. You're making a mistake because more football people would watch Detroit, Minnesota before they'd watch. San Francisco's an ordinary team at best. They're just not even any good. What are they, 3-3? They're just not any good. And Kansas City's okay, but they haven't done it. They've struggled to win games.
Only won every game, but
it's a marquee. You're going on resume alone on that one. The Viking Lion game is much more intriguing, better storylines, much more at stake in that game. I mean, command of the NFC North is at stake for the Vikings. A win there, they go to 6-0, and they're 2 games up on everybody, and they're 2-0 against the division. San Francisco plays in the NFC West. Kansas City's in the AFC, is it Central, whatever they call it, North? I'm not saying it might not be an interesting game, and I know what you're saying about, well, it's Mahomes, but I'm sorry. But here's what I am saying. The what's the word I'm looking for? Hold on. The blessing in disguise is and I'm going to be at the game. Deuce and I, it's a father-son thing. We've been doing this forever. The only Kitties Vikings game we missed at the bank was last year. I couldn't go. I came down with COVID, and the iHeart Media Suite. We entertain clients and other groups, and there was kids, families who had cancer. So if you got COVID, you just can't go. So I had to acquiesce, and I couldn't go. But that was the first time Deuce and I missed a game. But we will be there for that tilt. But I will tell you, if I was at home, I would be tickled pink. I would dance like Donald Trump did the other night. He did a 45-minute American Bandstand dance-off at one of his rallies. I would do my best Trump dancing impersonation because I would much rather listen to Davis. And Brady adds, he'll probably get better, but right now he adds nothing to the broadcast. Absolutely zero, except name recognition in 7 big game world championships. We'll take a break. When we do, on the other side of the break, I have some controversial Vikings news, but Tennessee has a keyword for us.
The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword bank at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. The keyword is bank. Enter now at KFAN.com. Comedian and podcaster Tom Segura, he's hitting the road. Catch him when he brings his Come Together tour to the XL Energy Center on Friday, April 18th. Don't miss out on this hilarious night of comedy. Tickets are on sale now. Get the full details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
I'd rather watch Ravens-Bucks than I would Kansas City against San Francisco. And then I think a much more intriguing matchup is Texans against the Packers. I'd rather watch that game than watch San Francisco. A mediocre team. They're a terrible team in a terrible city with terrible fans. I'm going to make a bold and brash statement right now. San Francisco will not make the playoffs this year. Of course, they're in a terrible division. They'll probably back in with an 8-9 record or 9-8. So maybe I'll take that back. Vikings. I'm not a gambling man. Tend to be. I think a lot. I don't know what percentage of people that follow the National Football League are fascinated by odds, but the Vikings are a favorite by what?
2.
By 2 points. That sounds about right to me. Just the home field advantage, right? Again, many road teams have won over the years, so it's not as though you're home. You have a You have a leg up on them. I guess we do with our kicker. Of course, the Kitties have a brand new kicker too. Some youngster named Bates. I don't know if he may have missed a kick or two, but he's got a really strong leg. So kicking game is probably pretty even. But I think being at home is definitely is certainly an advantage because again, when your defensive unit is on the field, the home teams can make things tricky for an offense. But I think 2 points seems about right to me. We were discussing yesterday. We've been talking about for a couple of weeks now. Would Aaron Jones be ready to play on Sunday? Yeah, the hip injury suffered against the Jets. Did I read that right? I guess I have a bad memory. Did he aggravate it pregame And then during the game, he tried to go and couldn't, and they pulled him out. That's what I thought I read.
Yes.
So it was like in warm-ups or something is where he aggravated his hip. It wasn't like a hit out in the field.
And they have kind of described it as they're using hip as the term, but it's actually a hamstring, but it's the part of the hamstring that kind of connects to the hip.
Okay.
When I hear hamstring, that makes me a little more worried.
Yeah, well, and I remember when we talked about it, I think a lot of people said, he'll play. Yeah, he'll play. And I said, well, maybe, and because and the only reason that I thought there was a pretty good chance he would play because he was on the field, on the sideline, still in uniform, and he was growing it. He was laughing, he was smiling, he was yucking it up with the guys. And so when you're doing that, I mean, I think if you thought it was a really bad injury and you might be a little slumped on the bench, or you might at least not be in a good mood. But he seemed in a good mood. But then when they made the trade for Akers, was that yesterday or the day before? Was it 2 days ago? That led me to believe that there was probably a pretty good chance he was not going to be ready to play. Now you could say, well, they liked Akers all along. They had him last year. KOC has worked with him not only with the Vikings but also when they were with the Rams, and maybe they felt that who are the two kids that are backing him up? Backing up Aaron Jones, our running back.
Ty Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler, and he's been okay, right? He ain't David Montgomery. And then who's our other guy?
Miles Gaskin. So you could say, well, they just wanted to beef up the running game to begin with. But I think it's because I think this isn't to say that Jones won't play Sunday, but I think they're kind of covering their bases here, right? They're like, this doesn't look good. So I think they just feel better if they've got somebody like an Akers rather than worrying about having your backfield be Chandler and Gaskin against the Kitties on Sunday. Well, and the other part of this is Chandler hasn't been very good this year. Like from an efficiency standpoint, like his stats are some of the worst in the league. So I know he flashed at times last year and warranted more play than Alexander Madison as the season went along, but you're not getting much out of your backup running back. And Miles Gaskin is just a journeyman who's always going to be,
right.
One day he might be in the practice squad or being free, a free agent somewhere.
He's an emergency backup.
Yep. He's just a guy that, hey, if we need someone who can come in and block occasionally, he'll know what to do. But so I think it's a combination of you're not getting much out of your backup, you don't have a lot of depth, and your starter has a history of you never know when he's going to be in the lineup or not. So you need to have some security at that position.
Do you, going into this game knowing what we know, we still don't know. Jones isn't, is he on the injury list and is it?
Well, I didn't practice yesterday.
Right.
So.
Okay. So let me ask you this. How much concern, what is your level of concern that, the one thing with Akers is he probably knows the playbook. I don't think it's changed too much.
I'm sure last year.
But what would you, what's your level of concern going into the game without Aaron Jones?
It changes things.
Yep.
I think without Aiden Hutchinson, it's going to free up our passing game a little bit more. Right. So it might be one of those games where we don't need to have a running back, whereas the Jets, just from a matchup standpoint, because their cornerbacks are so good, you kind of need to have that balance more against the Jets. Against the Lions, I think you can get away with being a little pass heavy.
And I think I've asked you this already. Do you have any concerns about Sammy Darnold? He started out, he was the NFC Offensive Player of the Month, and he was really good. Then again, in the second halves of the last two games, he's been a bit shaky. That bother you at all, or do you have any cause for concern there, or pause for concern, or cause?
Yeah, I gave you the same answer I did last time. I'm not concerned of him completely falling apart and reverting to New York Jets Sam Darnold or Carolina Panthers Sam Darnold. I do think KOC is so good at putting wide receivers in position to get open that there's going to be many plays where Sam Darnold's thrown to a receiver that's open.
Right.
And, overall, I've been pretty pleased with Sam Darnold. Right.
Right.
And we've talked about the multiple times where they've needed a big drive out of him late in the games, and he's producing those moments. So he hasn't been perfect. No quarterback is. I mean, you look at Pat Mahomes' stats, he's got 5 interceptions on the season. But I think overall he's been good. And because the defense has been so good, you don't need him to be brilliant.
The Vikings running game as it stands right now, and the Lions pass rushing as it stands right now, would you use these words to describe both units? Hot mess? Would you call him both a hot mess? Rosen would, certainly. And I'm wondering if you would, because that phrase is starting to catch on with me a little bit now. I kind of like hot mess. I think it first came up in the 80s, but that's okay. I use a lot of hip now with it now, and wow, groovy, far out phrases as well. It both seems to be, it does seem to be a hot mess. So, there are a lot of interesting issues going into this game, and maybe most of all, and again, I've read a number of pieces nationally that are focused on the same thing you and I talked about early in the week. As soon as, matter of fact, you could see this coming, the two coordinators right now that are considered at the top of their game. I mean, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for Detroit, he could have gotten a head coaching job in the offseason. Yeah. He said no. I think, it's unfinished business, which I kind of admire, and I don't blame him, because you're thinking to yourself, he's probably going to have a long career. It's not as though I don't think, I guess if the Lions offense completely fell apart this year, that could damage his chances of getting a head coaching job. People go, boy, something happened there. But there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to get a head coaching job somewhere. But if you feel like the team you're currently with and the weapons you have, little toy you have, and it's like, well, I want to get back there again. We could have been there, and you want to win as many. Well, you want to win your first ship, but what's wrong with winning one as an OC and then later winning one as a head coach? And the other thing is, Tenby, as you know, when you take that head coaching job, usually you're taking over a team that was 3-14, or 4-13, and you got a lot of work to clean up. A lot to clean up, and then there's no guarantees it will. So I don't blame him for sticking around. And then of course we know how good Flo is, right? I mean, Flo fights fire with fire. That's what he's going to do on Sunday. So
I would use water to fight fire, but
yeah, that's good, or some kind of a flame retardant.
Yeah,
of some
an extinguisher.
Sort. Yes, I like the way you think. So yeah, I got a lot of good storylines. We'll take a break. We'll come back. A colleague of mine who I think is also a good friend has turned on me. I'll explain. Other side of the break. Common Man program on the Fan. Metallica.
Get ready to laugh until you cry. Nick Swartzen, the hilarious star of Reno 911 and Grandma's Boy, is bringing his side-splitting stand-up to the State Theater on January 10th. Don't miss your chance to hear his outrageous stories and unforgettable jokes live. Tickets go on sale this Friday at 10. Get the full details now at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Turner Classic Movies. Ooh, Grand Prix. That is a Steve McQueen movie. It looks like it's just a doc, though. It's not the movie itself. No, maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know what they're up to. I got a little tired of the Food Network. Food Network was making me hungry, Tenby.
Don't blame you.
Two recommendations for, fighting fire with fire. You suggested water. I suggested a flame retardant. Someone suggested Common's Wet Blanket Wednesday would do it. And then someone else said, why don't you smother it with a tarp shooter? You could do that as well. Now, if you use one of my books, that would actually just enhance the flames, right? That would make the fire grow stronger. So I wouldn't suggest. Did I tell you I wrote a book?
You did.
And there are not many left, about 150 books left. You can go to commonmanbook.com. That's commonmanbook.com. Also today, we're going to give away another pair of tickets to the Tommies versus Gophers hockey game at the X. That will be Saturday, October 26th. We'll give those away a little bit later today. If you'd like to buy tickets right now, you can. They're available at xlenergycenter.com. Mark Rosen and Deuce will both join us today. Rosen at 2, Deuce will join us at 2:30 for Spread Swing. So that's what we've got coming up for you today. Tenby, how long have there been podcasts? Just a rough
couple, 13,
guess.
14 years.
I've never listened to a podcast in my life, ever.
Never
have listened to a podcast.
Not even your own?
Not even my own. Until the other day. And I didn't listen to it in its entirety, but someone sent to me a podcast that said the Pohlads and the KFAN Effect. And I thought, well, okay, you've hooked me. What's the KFAN Effect? It was something to that effect. It was Suhan, Roy Smalley, and none other than Lavelle E. Neal III. And
a couple guys that are very high on the
Pohlad Pocket Protector Power Rankings.
They are on the Mount Rushmore. That would be the two of them, Pat Royce, and I love Patrick. I love Suhan and I love Lavelle. As a matter of fact, Suhan said he loved me too. We consider ourselves friends. And I consider Lavelle a colleague and a friend as well. I don't know Roy Smalley at all. I don't think he wants... When you hear him talk about the fan, I think he just thinks the whole thing should just be junked. He doesn't seem like he's...
you probably agree with him.
Yeah, and he just kind of thinks the whole thing. He didn't have much to say, but, they actually were very complimentary of the radio station as far as, dynasty, powerful radio station, people love us. Lavelle called us one of the most successful radio stations, sports stations in the country, and we certainly are. They actually think that we have something to do with the Pohlads wanting to sell. Now, I would quote Aaron Rodgers. It's astonishing that people think I have that much pull, but maybe we do. I mean, I think there are a number of people on this radio station. You, me, Sauce, Barrero, JG. I don't know about what PA and Nordo have said, and I'm not sure what the other members of the Power Trip Morning Show what their opinions are. But I think a lot of us we're down on the Pohlads and thought, Age of Aquarius. You don't have to have the biggest payroll every year, but every once in a while, why don't you go for it? And then you have the Pohlad pocket protectors that say the game's too complicated. You don't understand. Just stay in your lane. Just continue to analyze your caveman sports, football and hockey, the physical sports. Don't worry about the nuances and the beautiful game of baseball. But the conclusion, and Lavelle agreed, because Suhan came up with, it was basically, they think we're just catering to our audience because that's what they want to hear. We're just giving them red meat. In other words, all I can take from and then Lavelle said, I agree. They're a radio station of shticks and bits. Common Man does this Pohlad pocket protector. And then they raved about me. They started idolizing and pedestalizing me as a talk show host. Can't believe that I'm able to do the things I do, just talking into a microphone without guests and this and that and the other thing. They kind of dismissed you like he's got a producer, but so they kind of ripped you a little bit, so to speak. But
it's warranted.
When I take, and again, I don't care. I find it humorous, but it's like, it's not like you and I got together and said, what would our audience want us to say about the Twins? You know what? I really don't believe that the Pohlads are cheap, and I think the way they're doing it is the way they should be. They're smart businessmen, but I know our audience wants to hear me call them cheapskates. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's what they suggested. They basically said, I don't believe what I say, but I say it anyways, and there's nothing more preposterous. I mean, the one thing and look, I'm not wrong very often, but my opinions are what I really feel. I don't play to the audience as far as, we do bits to play to the audience. We do, montages. We do Nostradamus. We do things. We do 5, 3, 4. We do things we think the audience likes. But my opinions on the issues of the day in sports are in no way, shape, or form. I mean, how hard have I been on the Vikings over the years? Every team, every team. I'm hard on all of them, and I praise them when they're doing well. It just doesn't happen often in this town, but. Would I ever say nary a discouraging word about the Vikings? Think about this. This is the truth. As a matter of fact, what Lavelle brought up was, he says in the time he's been associated with the fan, we have tried not once, not twice, not 3 times to acquire the Twins broadcasting rights. We've thrown our hat in the ring. Sure, we're interested in monopolizing all the But he said, I wonder what they would say if they got the Twins. We're not Bally Sports North here. The Twins would have to realize nobody on the air is going to change what they have to say about them just because we become broadcast partners. You don't have to believe this.
I'm guessing that's part of the reason they haven't become broadcast partners with us.
You don't have to believe this. I've recanted this tale on a number of occasions. The Vikings left us once because they wouldn't muzzle Chad, Barrero, and Common. We were very hard on the Vikings, and for good reason. And the Vikings said, we don't like what they say. And management said, I can't muzzle if I muzzle my talent, my hosts, then they lose all credibility.
Yep.
So they left. They said, okay, well, if your guys are going to continue to cheap shot our club and be over what they, I'm sure, considered overly critical, we're out. Okay. And they left. And they were gone. I don't even know where they went. Did they go to CCO?
I think so.
They left. And guess what? They came back. And they know. I mean, think about it. We play, how many times have we, I bet hundreds.
Hundreds?
Hundreds of times we've played the Vikings defense is just chairs. I mean, how many times do we criticize the Vikings, rip the Wild, the Wolves, the Lynx, the Gophers.
And complimented.
And complimented. Yeah. I don't do it because I think, well, my audience right now would really like me to be really complimentary of the WNBA team. Well, I'll be complimentary of them if they're playing well. I can't. Last night, they lost. They couldn't stop Breanna Stewart. She went off for 30. She was the gal that was I think, off in game one, played better in game two, and she was brilliant last night.
She missed the game-winning free throw in game one, right, and then missed the chance at the buzzer in overtime.
Yes. And then last night, she scored, I think it was 13, 14 points over a stretch of the something like over a stretch of the third and early fourth quarter to tie the game. And then Sabrina. I'll just call her Sabrina. Sabrina hits the game winner at the buzzer. 1 second remaining. Cold-blooded. Fadeaway. Our team.
It gave me PTSD of Luka Doncic against the Wolves.
And speaking of fading, the Lynx faded. That was their game to have. They jumped out to a big early lead. It was just the opposite of what they'd done when they came back. They had the brilliant comeback in game one. And they came back in game two. Even though they lost, they fought back from a large deficit to cut it, I think, to 2. And then lost at the very end of the game.
Doesn't sound like you're playing to the audience right now.
No, I'm not, because I'm supposed to do you didn't do montages the last 2 days. That would play to our audience. There's a lot of people bitter. So you can disagree and say, well, you don't understand the finances of baseball, and you don't understand that it's big market, small markets. There's no salary cap, and because the larger market teams have a much bigger pool of money to play with because of local television and radio rights. I can discuss that with you, and I actually agree with you. Certainly, in New York, those local broadcast rights are much greater. The sum of money is much greater than what you get in your Kansas Cities, your Clevelands, your Detroits, your Minnesotas, and all the other smaller market teams in Milwaukee. But we've talked about forever, but you can dip into your own personal finances if you want. And then they fail to mention, and the Pull-Out Pocket Protectors never do this, that most of us that have encouraged the Twins to maybe open up open up the purse strings and pry that dust-filled wallet open a little bit more. We're not asking you to do it. We've never asked them to do it year after year after year, only when it appears to be the age of Aquarius, when everything seems to be aligning like it did after last year. 0-18. Now, the Pull-Out Pocket Protectors are critical of the Twins this time. Well, they shouldn't have done that. They probably should have built on that. Well, why is that any different? Why are they suggesting, if they think the Pollads know how to run their business, they should have been saying, well, the Pollads have to do what they do? Because remember what Joe said, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it. He goes, but I got to write my business. What was the phrase he used? We could dig it up if we wanted to. But he goes, I don't care what it, Joe basically said, I'm paraphrasing, goes, I'm not sure what everybody wants, but all I know is I've got to do right by my business. And I have to get payroll where it needs to be, and they cut it by $30 million. So they were critical, but they've never been critical any other time. Yeah, they seem to say that we're just pandering to the fans, and that it's just a bit. Because that's what Lavelle said. Well, they're just shticks and bits. Well, that's the reason we're successful, is because every show has shticks and bits. We don't break down middle relief for 3 hours a day for weeks on end. We do a lot of other things along with sports. But I just found it, I just laughed when they said that they literally believe, well, Smalley didn't believe anything. He didn't want to talk about it. I don't think he particularly cares for the station, but I could be wrong. Hard to know what he really was
It's not
saying.
for everybody.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. But for them to suggest that, I could say, well, they're just pandering to their Twins audience that likes them. You know the Pohlads should be spending more money, but you don't want to criticize them because you know there's those fans that they live, eat, breathe, and they want to think everything the Twins do is right, and Byron Buxton's great. And I think you're pandering to them. I mean, we can go back and forth with this pandering thing. I don't pander to anybody. Well, except the coroner's office. I will pander to them occasionally, even though I've ripped them. I suggested their programming decisions have not been very good as of late. And guess what? Tenneby and I are now helping program the radio station. We've now been able to get the WNBA finals games on KFAN. And then what else did we do? That was a good move that we made. There was something else we did. Oh, we weren't going to run a PJ Flex show because PJ was going to be out of town. Well, we should still run a show, and guess what? They ran a show. They just brought in players instead. It's just...
I'd still like to convince him to go noon to 2.
Well, and we're working on that. I think noon to 2 would be really good. But, yeah, I just... right size payroll. That's what it was.
Right size payroll,
I've got to right size the payroll. All right. I'd rather right size the standings. I'd rather owner go, you thought that was good last year? We're going to go for it, folks. Now, it's a window. Want to let you know, we still are rather conservative, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to sign Sonny Gray, or we're going to go get a Blake's. Now, we're going to make a run at this and see how it goes for the next year or two. And if it doesn't work, well, guess what, folks? Now we're going to right-size payroll. I think most people would understand that, I guess. I don't know.
Can I say something controversial here?
That's interesting.
I think the Twins ownership, the intent to sell it, I think kind of came out of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the White Sox, Jerry Reinsdorf, is intending to throw it out to sale.
Correct.
Is this just a coincidence that just two teams are happening to wanting to sell their team, or does the ownership see the future of Major League Baseball and go, financially, this isn't going to be as good moving forward, right? Yeah. They've had all the TV issues. The TV money's not coming in like it once did. Have the values of the franchises reached their apex? And will they start going down? I've always thought at some point, like these franchise values just can't keep going up and up and up and up at the rate they've been going. At some point, there has to be a cap, and it has to come down at some point. Like, is this just a business decision going, hey, this is the best time to sell because I think there might be trouble financially here on the horizon?
Well, it could be in the Reinsdorf situation. He's 88 years old.
Yeah.
And so he might, because I think what I read, and I should admit this working at the All Sports station, but I just skimmed the story this morning. And he said he wants his heirs, because he knows it's like what Wild Bill Bauer told that 80-year-old car buyer when he walked into Coon Rapids Chrysler of Plymouth when Billy was selling cars to supplement his comedy before he could do it full time. And he goes, look, this is probably the last car you're going to buy. You may as well get it loaded, right? And the guy did. But, Reinsdorf, he knows he's nearing the end of the end of the end for him, and he wants his heirs to keep the Bulls, but he does want them to part ways with the White Sox. And it could be what you're saying that, I made, and it's probably preposterous, but I think the last year or two I've said baseball won't exist in 25 years. I don't think there will be Major League Baseball. There are those that believe if you put a salary cap in Major League Baseball, it would work much better. It probably would, but the owners themselves haven't gone for that, right? Because couldn't the owners absolutely, now they would have to get with the Players Association as well, but I think if the Players Association, I think they have a willingness to listen to logic and say, we can't keep doing it this way. You know, I know why the Players Association doesn't like a salary cap, because that's more money for all the players. If you have no salary cap, especially for the big market teams that want to spend big money, you can have a $300 million payroll
100?
if you want. 100 if you want it to. And those players want a big piece of that money. But the owners don't want to go for it, and apparently the players don't either, I guess. So it is what it is. And so and I'm not even convinced the Twins are going to sell yet. The intent to explore is the phrase. The intent to explore. Tenemy.
I've been intending to explore a new job for about 15 years.
Hold on. You intend to explore for your Titleist Pro V1 that you blocked, right? But you're not going to explore it for very long. Because, you know, I shot a 90 today. I shot 51 on the front.
Nice back, at least.
Well,
you responded.
And here's what I did on the back. At loggers, I pulled my drive left into the junk, and I played it, but I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to re-tee now and really focus and see if on the re-tee, just, see if I can shoot 36. Well, I ended up shooting 37, but technically 39 because I took another one.
Yeah.
But I played really well on the back. I started hitting. I had 2 3-putts. I actually got home in 2 on a par 5.
Wow.
Well, 16.
What hole's that?
16, the 4 loggers.
You got there in 2, huh?
Well, 481 yards, remember, from the blue tee.
Still.
But the thing is, I had a 20-mile-an-hour wind at my back.
Oh, okay.
So I hit it right by the fairway bunkers, just short in the rough.
Yep.
And then I hit as good a hybrid as I've ever hit. I just bombed it. And you know how about 70 yards from the green, maybe not even 70, 50 yards, 50, 60 yards from the green, it slopes down as you're approaching it.
Yep.
I think I hit the down slope because I bounced it, and then I 3-putted. It was a back pin. Where the pin was yesterday, you could see where it was cut. I would have been 4 feet for eagle, but I wasn't. But anyway, why did I start talking about my golf game? I don't like to talk about my golf game or myself.
You're pandering to your audience, babe, because they want to hear about your golf game.
That's exactly. I'm pandering to my audience is what I'm doing. So,
I would rip your golf performance today, but the audience wants to hear great golf talk about your own round, so I'm not going to do it.
I've heard this before, and this makes sense, Teneby. I believe it says baseball needs a salary floor more than a cap. Because that's the thing, they can spend as little as they want. So some of these teams are spending literally, what's your payroll? We're about $22 million. I'm not saying exaggeration, but they're barely spending anything, And I will say this, my interest I've paid closer attention to the Major League Baseball playoffs this year than I have, other than when the Twins are in it, than I have in 20 years. But I'm really losing interest now because it's good. It looks like it's going to be the Dodgers, and it looks like it's going to be the Yankees. Tonight could be the last night I watch baseball this season. If the Guardians lose, and is that an afternoon game? Is that 4 o'clock?
I think it's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. If the Guardians lose to the Yankees and go down 3 games, then I'm out. I ain't watching any more baseball. I won't watch any more of the NL, and I know nobody cares about NLCS or ALCS, and I won't watch
Dodgers doesn't do a whole lot for you.
No, it doesn't do anything for me. Though I will say, when you spend money, you get to you do generally make the playoffs over and over and over again. And you may not win the World Series every year, but if you don't make postseason play, you don't have a chance to get to the World Series.
I kind of want Yankees and Dodgers to be in the World Series just because, a week ago, Suhan used them as an argument of why you don't have to spend money.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't won they've only won X amount of World Series. Well, that guaranteed one of them will win a World Series.
And I think they are. The Mets, I suppose, could still, the Miracle Mets. How about we call them the Miracle Mets? Because they were 11 and a half games out of first place, I think, back sometime in June or July. I don't think that's ever been used before. It's got great alliteration. Miracle Mets.
Nothing like calling a team a miracle team when they've spent $300 million on their payroll.
Well, there's that. We tend to explore 534 on the other side of the break. We intend to explore a segment with Rosen and Deuce called spread swing at 2:30. But as we go to break, Tennessee does have a tease for 5-3.
Yeah, we were talking about the Pollads this segment, Common. Will the Wilfs be the anti-Pollads?